Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm back to talk about Supernatural episode 1515 titled Gimme Shelter, which premiered Thursday, October 15th, 2020 on the CW. I'm recording roughly almost 2 hours after the episode has ended, so it's like 9:50 for me right now. So huge spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first and then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. My other video reminders are up on screen, so take a moment to remind yourselves of those. Huge YouTube shout out to Rodrigo Rodriguez for their comments on my 1514 video. Thank you so much, truly appreciate it. And for anyone who checked out my other videos, thank you for taking the time to do so. I truly appreciate it as well. But let's get started right into it. First off, I just want to say there are some observations that I cannot believe I forgot to mention in 1514, especially when I was rewatching the whole holiday montage moment. And that is because there's actually 3 moments in that episode, in the previous episode, that really reminded me about the Hollywood parody 2. And that is the whole monster alarm that we got due to the monster board. The fact that Dean actually said we got one, which was reminding me of when Misha played the role of the secretary in their parody, and that's one of the lines he shouted out. And then, which I'm pretty sure is a homage to Ghostbusters. And then also throughout that montage, pretty much every case every case segment ended with them kicking in the door and having this power stance as they walk in, which is kind of like a little homage to what Jensen and Jared did in the Hollywood parody 2 when they made their entrance in their portion of the parody. So I cannot believe I completely forgot to mention those little observational tidbits in my previous video, so I really wanted to mention it, so there it is now. Now let's get right into today's episode, or this week's episode, however you want to frame it. So 1515. It's actually directed by Matt Cohen, aka young John Winchester. So that's an interesting way to bring old cast members back on without having to have them on screen, which I thought was pretty cool. In regards to the timeline, though, I say it's shortly after the events of 1514. I don't know how long it's been, but we do see Cass returning. But again, don't know how far out he was when everything was going down for him to know, like, travel time, how long it's been. But the episode reminder, I'm going to say 2 different cases are focused in this episode, which I will get into in storylines. But that's one thing there. Also, one of the cases you can kind of say is a reference to the title of the episode, Gimme Shelter. So that is something there. That's the Cass and Jack storyline. But let's get into the storylines right now. Like I said, 2 different storylines. I'm going to go with the Sinners Beware, as well as the second being Fall of the Darkness. Sinners Beware, as my first storyline, is pretty much, I guess, your A story. If you really want to come down to it, it's when Castiel and Jack investigate a case where people from the same faith community are being attacked. They don't call themselves a church group, but the synopsis does. But yeah, through them, I guess you can say the whole Gimme Shelter reference. Plus, also, I got a few Saw vibes in this case in particular, in regards to victim Valerie. It kind of had me thinking of, like, the whole orchestrated traps and the countdown clock and a choice and stuff like that. Also, in this story, we find out it's not actually a monster. That is the one behind it. It's a human killing, first off, even though it kind of looks a little demonic at times. But by the end of the case, we have Jack revealing something to Castiel about the ultimate end goal for Billy's plan against Chuck, which I will talk about later. The second storyline deals with Following the Darkness, and this is Sam and Dean traveling to find Amara from one of their leads, yet she ends up finding them instead, claiming that she sniffed them out 2 states away, and claiming that she could feel Castiel's mojo. Because also, if she's able to do that, I'm kind of questioning, well, why hasn't Chuck been able to do that too, if that makes any sense? So that's something there. Unless, I don't know, that's something that, since they're supposed to be 2 peas in a pod and everything. But anyways, But after much refusal from Amara, Dean ultimately gets her to think about joining forces with them and betraying Chuck, since they're all pawns to him, including his sister. But they tell her that they need her in order to trap Chuck, and from my understanding, they're lying about that because they ultimately want to try to kill her. So pretty much they want to use her to kill Chuck and then ultimately get her killed afterwards, from my understanding, or it's killing them both at the same time. I don't know. But during this conversation, Amara reveals that her and Chuck were created together, as opposed to the Winchesters being told that Amara was created before Chuck. And it's when Amara and Chuck were, once they were split apart, it was from that Big Bang moment that created everything. Which is kind of different to what we were led to believe, as Amara being the oldest, then Chuck was created afterwards, and when Chuck had thrown Amara and locked her away, he then started creating things, or it was once it was just the two of them, he started creating things, and when he thought Amara was a danger towards those creations, then he locked her up. But it made it seem like Chuck was conscious when he created things, but in Amara's explanation, it was more of like the aftermath of them splitting up, and it's the blast from that is what started creating things, and then maybe Chuck went about to create more things in the multiverse, kind of a thing. I don't know, the whole Big Bang thing is kind of like confusing, since you've heard so many different iterations, and I'm like wondering, well, which way is it? Because the way Amara kind of had it explained was kind of like maybe her and Chuck were meant to be the same cell, and then once they divided from each other, that's what resulted in the Big Bang for them. I don't know, it's a huge thing, but it was very interesting trying to get her viewpoint in a sense and try to humanize that when it's such a cosmic thing, if that makes sense. So there's that. Last scene of the episode is back at the bunker, and this is when it's Dean and Cass tells him that he wants to search for another way, and which Dean doesn't understand what he's referring to. And then Cass tells Dean that if he doesn't return, there's something he needs to tell Dean, and then again something he's not understanding where this conversation is going, and then it cuts to black. So you end on a cliffhanger, which I'm annoyed with, but we'll talk about that later. But in regards to tidbits, though, we get that we get both Castiel and Jack going into the field pretending to be FBI, and as we know, Sam and Dean go with rock aliases. Cass and Jack now take on the pop aliases, as Cass is going as Agent Swift and Jack is going as Agent Lovato, which is just funny. It seems like Jack picked up on that little thing from Cass and not from the Winchesters. Jack is also called Baby Yoda due to his youthfulness as an agent, even though he claims he has a stepson who has that talking bear toy, which kind of reminded me of Ted from that movie. So that's beside the point. We also find out that Castiel wasn't even aware about Mrs. Butters until he came back into the bunker. So that's something there that he was kept out of the loop on. And then we find out that Rowena has Crossroad deals down on pretty much on lockdown. She doesn't want any deals being made, which is causing the Crossroads demons to be very bored, even offering to be the driver for Cass and Jack on their little adventure. So that's something. Here's another thing too. So Pastor Joe, he actually is a familiar face within Supernatural because he was Dr. Sexy in season 5. But I immediately forgot that reference because I was searching it up, because once Pastor Joe showed up on my screen, I said, no, that's Trevor. Get the betraying Bobby out of the way, and that's from Julie and the Phantoms. He's only in 2 episodes, but he plays such a huge character for the Phantoms. And it was just like, maybe it's because it was really recent and I've watched Julie and the Phantom so many times already, that he popped up before realizing that he was Dr. Sexy. And then again, Dr. Sexy happened 10 years ago, even though my rewatch happened a year ago. But yeah, so that's one familiar face there. And also he was actually in an episode of Motherland Fort Salem, another good show that you should probably check out. It deals with witches in a very different society kind of a thing. Where everyone knows about them and they make up the military. So that's another one I recommend. And then also another tidbit is the fact that Sylvia, Pastor Joe's daughter, She's actually familiar, and I couldn't place why. Initially, I thought she was Alex, but then I was like, no, that's not it. But she's familiar because it's Nicole Munoz, hopefully I said that right. And she actually plays Jack on the 4th and 5th season of Van Helsing, which is why she looked familiar, but then also because she appeared in the backdoor pilot episode for the 100 in episode 708 as Callie's friend Lucy. Was like her face looked familiar, and then I kept pictures like she was hovering over another girl, and then like it was more like an emotional moment. It's like, why can't I place her? And I was waiting for IMDb to update so I could cross-reference who was in the cast of this episode and try to backtrack, and it turns out that she is Jack, so I was happy to have that mystery solved for myself. But moving on to death tally or end tally, Connor, at the very beginning, he was the teaser kill for the episode, or the cold open. That's the scene before the title card comes up. And then we have the employee, I can't remember his name, but he was the one that was found rotting in his bed, tied to his bed with lust painted across his bed. He's been dead for a while there too. So technically, would I call it an on-screen kill? I don't know, but it's definitely a dead body on screen. That's for sure. That's also another thing too. Initially, I was going to say a lot of the kills being made where you could kind of reference them to the cardinal sins or the 7 deadly sins, but then Connor actually got labeled a liar, so that doesn't really fit essentially, like lust and greed do. But that's something there. Not counting Valerie, who got labeled as a thief for greed just because she got saved by Castiel. So there's that. But let's move on to the most shocking moment of the episode. The most shocking thing, which I alluded to earlier, was the fact that Jack he knows that he's supposed to die when he kills Chuck and Amara. Billy's whole plan has been building Jack into this bomb, kind of like the soul bomb that Rowena turned Dean into when they were trying to take out Amara. So essentially, Jack is meant to go off, killing all 3 of them in the process, which is a huge shock to me. Not only that he knows he's going in as a sacrificial part, but just because of the fact that we've all been led to believe that if Chuck and Amara get taken off the board, someone has to take over their place to maintain the balance. And we all thought that Jack was going to take on that role, that he was going to be the new god. But then to find out that he's actually supposed to die and eliminate all sides to it, that's very shocking for me. Like, I don't know what the cosmos is supposed to look after this, if that makes sense. So that's something there. Moving on to familiar faces, Amara for sure is the familiar character that came back for us when she seeks out Sam and Dean. Technically, if you want to count Sylvia and Pastor Joe, just because the actors are familiar both within Supernatural and the fact that I've recognized them from other shows that I've watched, I may add them there as well as a side note. So there's that. Top 3 favorite moments. A favorite for me would have to be Dean's talk with Amara. Just because of the fact that not only did they talk about Chuck and him manipulating everybody and potentially Amara as well, but I really like that Dean could not leave until he got answers from Amara about her bringing Mary back to him. And I thought it was very interesting, instead of it just being, well, I wanted to give you back what you wanted most kind of a thing. But it was the fact that Amara wanted Dean to know the real Mary and not this legendary myth that she had built up after her death, which makes sense because Mary was a lot more complex. She had a lot more layers, and there was a lot more to her. She wasn't just a mom. She was a hunter. She was a woman. She was just trying to fight to survive, and that was something that didn't fit with the memory he had as a 4-year-old of Mary. So I thought it was very interesting that was one of the reasons why Amara wanted to resurrect Mary for Dean. And then to find out the second reason was because she had hoped that it would, I think if I'm understanding this correctly, she wanted Mary's return to somehow dim Dean's anger, from my understanding, but instead it seems that it ignited it even more, for the fact that she was taken away from him so soon. Also would like to mention the fact that I had it and then I just lost it. Crap. Shoot. Oh, yeah. Tying into the first reason why she brought Mary back, it was because she wanted Dean to finally accept his life as a hunter and not live in the what ifs, if that makes sense. Another favorite I did have was Castiel's speech to the group about his journey. I mean, yes, he didn't mention any of the angels and demons and stuff, but he talked about how he always lived with a purpose and following the mission, and then he strayed and he felt lost after that when he finally saw that things are more important outside of the mission, and then how he lost faith, and then how he regained it when he found family and he became a father, and how and like just his whole journey, like on an emotional level of like where his ups and downs were. I thought that was pretty cool to have Castiel share that, but then have him done it in a way that's very relatable to us humans, as it were, and then to also have Jack hear that as well, and who knows all the supernatural details, if you were. So I thought that was very cool to have. Just to see how far he's truly come when he explains, or how not. I guess it's interesting to see how he sees himself on his journey, as opposed to what we as the viewers see his journey as being, which I thought which could be two different things sometimes. And then another favorite was just, I guess I should say this one first, but now that I thought about it, but it's just Jack and Castiel throughout this whole episode. Initially, I was just going to say Jack's whole social media moment with Castiel and how he was trying to make it count, but he needed parental permission, and then Cass was like, I gave you permission. So that was pretty cool. And cute as well. But then also just Jack wanting to wear this matching ties with Cass, and then him saying, well, blue would look great, which I thought was pretty cute as well. So then it just kept piling up, so I figured I'd label them all Jack and Cass favorites. There was a few father-son references as well. The fact that Jack references the fact that he has many fathers, and then Cass referencing the fact that being a father changed him as well too. And then it was a lot of these funny and very genuinely cute moments. But then the real heartbreaker was Jack's confession about how he knows that he's gonna die when he stops Chuck and Amara, and how he's been keeping that secret from Cass and the Winchesters, and then seeing Cass's reaction to that just broke my heart. But it's a favorite because we got to see that interaction between them. We got to see how much of an emotional impact that is between them, and just having them have that lightheartedness between them earlier on in the episode too is something I really liked to see as well. Top 3 peeve moments. First peeve I will say is the cliffhanger we got with Dean and Castiel. I mean, now that we found out about Jack's secret in this episode, I'm wondering if that is what Cass is preparing to tell Dean, and hopefully we pick up the next episode with that scene or conversation, I should say. But initially in the promo, when it kind of previewed that kind of a lineup, I thought it was going to pertain to Castiel's own deal with the empty, and how he is going to be taken, or he's going to be quote unquote killed, to go back into the empty at the moment where he feels the happiest. I thought that's initially what he was going to tell them, but maybe it's now going to be shifted to Jack having to be sacrificed in order to kill Chuck and Amara. Maybe that's what's going to... Because I'm trying to figure out from the promos we had that kind of mix all the upcoming episodes together, if I'm wondering what that conversation is going to be, and I just don't know. But cliffhanger is a big peeve. I understand why it happens, but as a viewer, I'm annoyed that it stopped right there and have to wait a week for it. But another peeve is just it's very small. It's nothing to do with the story pretty much. But the peeve, it's more of a character, but it's that friend that Sylvia had who was flirting with Jack, who was on social media on the steps. What really bugged me, and I know there's people out there, and I don't know why people do it, but I know there are because it pops up when you're going through social media. But when her friend said that she posted what happened to Valerie on social media, and then she was just disappointed she was getting frowns for it, and it's like, it's part of a murder investigation. Why would you happily post something like that and hope to get a positive result from people? Like, she seemed very disconnected or completely unaware of, like, there's like an emotional detachment. And that kind of bugged me because that's just not something you post and hope to get a reaction out of it. Yes, you might post something to spread awareness about something, but from her mannerisms, that was not the case that she was going to do. She was trying to get clickbait. And it's just like people like that. It's like, no, you common sense, people, common sense. So that was a peeve there. So it didn't really surprise me that she got stabbed when she did. It did surprise me, though, that Sylvia stabbed her, but yeah, you know. But moving on to random questions very quickly. When Dean had his moment with Amara and she's asking if she can trust him and he says, I would never hurt you, do you think the bond that was between them in season 11 is still there? Like, we saw that he couldn't physically harm her. Like, he couldn't betray her because of that bond. So I'm wondering if that's still in play, because I can't tell if him saying I would never hurt her was him being truthful because of the bond, or if he was saying that yet still being truthful, but yet he was deceiving her because it wouldn't be him physically hurting her, but it would be Jack who would do it. Like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like a loophole in your promise. So I can't tell which one it is. And then with his emotional reaction to that promise to her, I'm kind of on the fence on which way it would go. Like, I get, because sometimes we have seen Dean having one plan when it came to Amara, but then when he actually came face to face with her, it was like a switch that he couldn't switch back, if that made sense. Like, his allegiance and loyalty automatically went to her when he was in her presence. So I can't tell if that's still in play or not for him, because I also can't remember what stopped him from having that connection to her. Right? Because it's not like he has the mark of Cain on him, but he was someone who had, I don't know, I'm rambling, sorry. Next question, though. Will we see Sylvia again, since she was in the custody of the Crossroads demon, pretending to be a cop when she got arrested? I don't know. Just because, only reason I ask, because why else would they show, if they just wanted to leave it at she gets arrested and that's it, that would have been cool, and we know that it was an open and shut case, we probably would never see her again. But the fact that they showed the Crossroad demon pretending to be the cop who arrested her has me thinking, okay, maybe she's not actually going to go to jail. Maybe she might actually break free and they might have to come across her later on. And the demon looked like he had plans, even though he's not supposed to be making deals. So, like, I'm wondering, why show that unless it's going to come back to bite them in the ass later on? You know what I mean? So that's the question there. And another question, I'm just wondering from a character standpoint, if Sylvia was such a devout believer in God, I'm wondering how she would rationalize her kills to not make her a sinner. Because I would assume, I don't know the Bible, but I would assume that if you believe in God and you believe that if you believe in God, you'd want to do everything you can to not be morally corrupt, if that makes sense. Please don't hate me. I really don't know the Bible at all. But, like, common sense to any human being, murder or inflicting pain of any kind to another human being is just downright wrong and should not be done. So I'm just wondering, for someone who is such a huge believer, how would she rationalize doing such things and still not being labeled as what she was accusing others of being, if that makes sense. I'm just going to stop now before I dig myself in a bigger hole. But let's move on to predictions very quickly. So based off the promo for 15-16, which also stated we have 5 episodes left, if you can believe it already. But it's actually flashbacks in this episode. We get a young Sam and Dean as well. And just because they deal with an old case from their childhood that used to give Dean nightmares after it happened, and it seems like it has resurfaced once again. It kind of reminds me of the season 1 Striga case, I believe it's 118, when they got put back on a case from their past because they didn't finish the job. This time it seems like they thought they finished the job, and it turns out that wasn't the case, and that's why they're back to finish it, kind of a thing. But we do get actual flashbacks for this, which I was missing for sure. But it will be interesting to see what these new younger Winchesters will be like, since all the past ones are too old to play the younger versions of them again. So there's that. Synopsis, though, for the episode reads, Sam and Dean are asked to investigate the murder of a childhood friend, calling them back to a motel from their past and perplexing the brothers with a case they thought was solved a long time ago. I wonder if Jack's going to come on for this one. Maybe he'll just stick to Sam and Dean because it's dealing with their past. Although it would be interesting if Jack were to tag along, because then he would get to know a little bit about Sam and Dean as kids, if that makes sense. But then I can understand why he'd want to keep their distance. But then if he knows he's going to die, wouldn't he want to spend more time with them? But I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, I can't wait to see what happens next, though. But what did you guys think of this episode? What did you guys like about it? What do you think will happen next? Especially in the final episodes to come. Final 5 episodes left to come. Please let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your thoughts, theories, and opinions about all that good stuff. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. Link for that is down below. I read blog promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, synopses, news, all that good stuff, all found in one place. Go check that out. I'm a little behind just because I'm still in school right now. I have a lot of script writing I gotta do within the next week. So I'm a little behind on catching up for that. But everything else should be up to par there. Also, WordPress account, link for that is down below. Anything I post online is connected to WordPress. A little more organized, a little more detailed, but still a work in progress once again. Also, live journal entry, link to my account is down below. I post jot-noted recaps of the episode written as I watch them for the first time. Currently, at the moment, all my season 15 ones are hidden just because I have font and formatting to deal with. Usually, I just type it all up sparingly, and then I go back by memory to put in what I remember, and then I format, color, and then I post it live for you guys to see. So again, because of school, it's going to take a while for that. Otherwise, guys, that is pretty much it. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope you come back next week to see what I have to say about the next episode. Really, I hope you guys just tune in to see what the last 5 episodes are going to put us through. I'm both excited yet both worried. But come join the ride with me. So, until next time, guys. This is Mel, wishing you all a great day, great week wherever you are. If you haven't already, check out Julie and the Phantom, check out Motherland, Fort Salem, and yeah, that's about all that I want to plug right now. So take care, guys. Bye.